The next 5 years will determine whether your retirement feels like a reward or a regret. You've spent your whole life building, saving, sacrificing. Now it's time to make decisions that will protect and unlock all that effort. In this video, I'm going to walk you through simple, powerful steps that you need to take so that you can retire with confidence, joy, and a life that lights you up. Hello, my name is Jason Byance. I'm a former analyst and certified financial planner, and today I'm going to show you why those 5 years before retirement are so important. All right, well, let's jump right in. The first thing that we want to look at are the expenses that we have. And when I talk about expenses, I want to talk about three basically buckets that we want to look at. First is basic, next is health, and lastly, we're going to call it other. All right, so basic expenses are pretty self-explanatory. They're all of the fixed and variable costs that you're going to have now, and you're also going to have in retirement. And then we really want to have a very good handle on what our healthcare expenses are 5 years from retirement. And there's a couple of reasons. One of them is if you're still working and your current employer has a health insurance plan that allows for HSA contributions. What are HSA contributions? Well, an HSA account is a health savings account, and you're able to put that money away tax deferred. So you're able to put that money away and it doesn't show up on your tax return and you don't pay taxes on that. And then if you take it out for a qualified medical expense or healthcare expense, you get to pay for those medical bills or those healthcare bills tax free. So 5 years before you retire or anytime before you retire, while you have access to an employer plan that allows for HSA, you're going to want to take advantage of that. Next, we have other. And I think that this is really, really important. And it's an area of financial planning that's easy to kind of brush over and blow past. Okay. We want to look at these four expenses under a microscope. So, why am I highlighting these in particular? Well, what we want to do when we're looking at expenses and we're getting ready for retirement, we want to get to understand what is retirement going to look like when we're actually there in terms of our expenses. And a lot of times I see people that don't have a great handle on this. And a perfect example of that is Patty. We had sat down with a lady named Patty, and she had kind of blown past this, and we weren't sure. We had them fill out an income planning worksheet. And so we went through her first year of retirement and we realized she was going to need an additional $1,000 a month that we had not yet planned for because the budget that she gave us, the expenses that she thought she was going to be spending in retirement, or at least she estimated, weren't very accurate. So after that first year, we really sat down and we said, hey, let's take a more in-depth look at these four areas. And then we had a much more clear budget to look at. So travel, what does your travel look like? Is it big trips? Is it a lot of small trips? Do you like to stay in really fancy places, or do you like to kind of, be more on a budget conscious travel itinerary? Hobbies. I know a lot of people that love golf. Well, are you going to have a membership? Are you going to be bouncing around to different golf courses? How many times a week are you going to golf? How expensive is that going to be? Dining out. This is one that I think a lot of people just don't realize how much they're probably going to dine out in retirement. Because remember, you're going to have a lot of time on your hands. All right. So whenever that friend says, hey, let's meet for, breakfast or a coffee. Hey, let's go ahead and grab lunch. Or maybe you're at some event and they say, hey, you want to go grab a bite to eat? Let's grab dinner. It's hard to say no. And so you want to have that in your budget. You want to try to think about what does my social life look like? When do I often eat out? How often am I eating out now? And what will that look like down the road? And then lastly is gifts. And gifts can come in a whole many different kind of ways, and you give gifts to many different people. You can think of nieces and nephews, maybe children that are getting married. You can think of people graduating from high school, graduating from college. Sometimes you have friends that are retiring that you want to do something special for. And then you have the typical birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas, all of those holidays and celebrations. So having a really good handle on this is extremely important in retirement planning because we want to understand what are our expenses going to look like when we're actually in retirement. Now, once we have a pretty good handle on this, then we can say, now we understand our new normal or what our new normal will be in retirement. And that is the basis in terms of the expense side. And then what do we want to look at? We want to look at the income side. Now, before I get into the next section, which is about income, I want to invite you to click the link below, and we'd love to send you a free copy of my brother Justin's book, Designed to Last, because this is a simple read. It's only about 100 pages and really gives you some framework and some steps to take during these last 5 years as you're preparing for retirement. And at the end of the book, it's got a list and questions, the most important questions that you and your family need to be asking so that you're prepared for this season of life. So click the link below, and we'd love to send you a free copy of that book. Okay, so now we have a handle on what our estimated expenses will be in retirement. Okay, what is our new monthly expense? What is the new normal in that regard? Then we want to look at income. And the first thing that we want to look at is mailbox money. And you may say to yourself, Jason, what are you talking about mailbox money? Well, I'm talking about those types of income where the money hits your mailbox every month. Now, I know that we're not in the age where you're actually typically getting checks in the mail every month, but it's that same idea that I can count on this every single month. And so, what are some examples? We can think about Social Security. Another example may be if you have a pension from your employer. Maybe you have rental properties and those rent checks come in every month. Or perhaps you may have something like an annuity that pays you a monthly income, sort of like a pension. So we want to understand what is our mailbox money. Now, once we add up our mailbox money, we need to put that against our expenses. Is our mailbox money, our guaranteed streams of income, is it more than our expenses? Now, a lot of times what we find out is people still need some additional income, something additional into mailbox money so that they're able to live the life that they want. And it's really, really important to understand this right here, okay? Because this right here, we don't know what this number is, okay? Until we know what our mailbox money is and until we know what is a very, as accurate as we can be, estimate of our expenses, our new monthly income that we're going to need. I'm sorry, for expenses, our new normal in terms of our expenses. And this is really, really important also because whatever additional money that we need in terms of income, that is going to come from our retirement savings. That's going to come from our portfolio, from our investments. So we have to do this work before we can ever get to the investment parts of planning for retirement in those last 5 years. So once we know this additional income that we're going to need from our portfolio, from our retirement savings, that really gives us a lighthouse, if you will, or some direction of how we should invest our money. And how we invest our money in those last 5 years before you retire are extremely important. And one of the main reasons is because of a concept called compounding. I'm sure you've heard that term before, compounding interest. And well, Warren Buffett, one of the greatest investors of our time, always talked about the power of compounding. So I want to go through a quick example about the power of compounding. Okay, so the power of compounding is the more base that you have in terms of an investment and that compounding interest, more interest on top of interest on top of interest, those gains start to compound and it becomes a snowball effect. So let's just go through a quick example. Number one, let's think about somebody who's maybe in their 30s, and let's say that they have $50,000 saved. Okay, they have $50,000 saved. And then you've got somebody who's in this stage of life. They are right on the cusp of retirement. They're about 5 years out and they've got 750,000 of savings. Okay. Now, let's just say they both have the exact same portfolio and they're both earning 8%. Well, this is where the power of compounding really comes into play. Because let's look at what these two portfolios would earn in terms of dollars if they're both earning 8%. So you can really see here how the power of compounding works. With that younger investor who has $50,000, they're adding $4,000 a year when they have an 8% rate of return. Now, somebody who is older or has more money saved, With this example, this retiree has $750,000 saved, and every year that they earn an 8% return, they're going to be adding $60,000 to their nest egg. So the power of compounding is a really, really impactful part of these last 5 years before you enter retirement. But it's not the only thing. We've got something else going on, and that has to do with contributions. So, what am I talking about when I say contributions? Well, at this stage of life, there's a couple of things going on. Number one is if you're over the age of 50, you have something called catch up provisions or catch up contributions that you can make. So you can put more money into certain retirement accounts as long as you fit those parameters. All right. You can put more money than a younger person that can, say a 40 or a 30-year-old can. So you're able to really take advantage of these last 5 years of retirement to add contributions. This helps with the compounding effect because you already have your nest egg and you're able to kind of shovel more money in there in those last 5 years. Here's another really important point. Not only does the federal government allow you to put more money in, well, do you actually have that money? Well, that's the good thing about this stage of life. For many retirees, especially those about 5 years out from retirement, the kids are out of the house. They've paid for college or weddings. A lot of times, most of their debt and vehicles are paid off. Sometimes they don't have a mortgage. So they have a much more free cash flow. They have more money coming in every month than they actually need because their expenses are a little bit down because they don't have so many dependents, may not have as much debt. Then the government says, yeah, and you can put more of that into your retirement account. And that really, really helps somebody prepare so that they can have confidence whenever they finally do retire. Now, I'm going to end with this. There is a little bit of a caveat here. So I'm going to put an asterisk because some people may say, Jason, that all sounds well and good, but that's not me. Okay. I still have things that are hanging over my head. I still have debts or whatever it may be. So that's why you want to take a really hard look at what should I, if I have extra money coming in every month, how much should I put toward contributions to my investments? And how much should I be putting toward other things? Maybe you need a new roof. Maybe you want to get those other big expenses out of the way, like an air conditioning unit. And here's another really, really important thing that I want to highlight. You want to take a look at, like I had talked about before, healthcare at this stage of life, right before you're ending is really, really good. So if we can throw money away in our HSA, that's really good. But then also, if we have some of that free cash flow, it makes a lot of sense to take advantage of the healthcare that we have while we're still employed. So maybe you have some dental work that you need to work on, or maybe there's a surgery that you've been putting off. You may want to take some of that extra income while you're still working to pay off some of these things or to get some of these things done, especially before you enter retirement, because we're not always sure of the healthcare coverage that we have. And then with big expenses like roof or AC, we don't want to get surprised by them. So as you can see, there's a lot of decisions to be made. But if you follow this simple framework, okay, if you work through these things and really understand how does this affect me, how does this affect my future, then you can really start to have a very fine-tuned plan before you enter retirement. Well, I hope that this was helpful to really illustrate why these years are so important. And I want to invite you to click this video here where I go over the 5 levels of retirement planning. And I want to give you a heads up. It's not what you're thinking. It's not simply about dollars and cents. And I think you can get a lot of value out of it for you and your family.